The crowd beginning to pay its tribute to Andretti, the young man who came to this country at the age of 14 as an immigrant from Italy. He had driven racing cars even before he came over here. This was the one he wanted more than anything else in the world. And here it comes, Mario. The checkered flag of victory. He's done it.
Mario, you have won the Indianapolis 500. You've won it like a champion in every respect. What thoughts are going through your mind now in the moments after victory?
Jim, just thoughts of happiness, believe me. I've been wanting to win this race so bad that you can't believe it, and I still can't believe it's true. I'm gonna have to be pinching myself all night until tomorrow.
All right, so we're here, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, with the man that needs absolutely no introduction, Mario Andretti. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're joined by a guy here. He's done some of our podcasts with us, but his family's got a little bit of history with you, right?
I would suspect that, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stories. There's some stories that I want to ask that I've heard one side of the perspective, and now I get to ask the other side of the perspective, but all in good fun. Thank you, Aaron, for allowing me to come do this. This is such an honor to be able to interview Mario. It's so cool.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
It's like surreal, really, to be doing this, but it's awesome.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. I always tell people, Mario, like I had this conversation with someone last week, like I think your story is really the embodiment of the American dream. I'm sure people have told you that all the time, but I mean, just what you went through, basically losing your country, coming over to America, and finding a passion, and then literally becoming one of the biggest names ever in that passion, I think is really incredible. And I really don't know a story that tells the American dream more than that.
Well, quite honestly, I'm the one that's been saying that I'm probably the perfect example of the American dream, because everything that has happened to me throughout my life, I could have never really been able to realize unless I came to America, unless the family came to America. So, yeah, I count my blessings every day for that, and I satisfied every bit of my most ambitious dreams, you know, coming here, meeting Parnelli Jones along the way, and having some great time, you know, on the same track with him, and learning from your dad and all that. So like I said, there's so many aspects of it that again, look around, and then the family, you know, like between my twin brother and I, we have 8 race drivers and a third generation on both sides driving. So the legacy continues, and here we are.
Did you, when you were a kid and you first came over to America, even before that, did you have these big of dreams? Did you think this was possible, or did you just kind of take it one step at a time?
Well, Jagger, I think it started out as the impossible dream when we were still in Italy. You know, teenagers. My twin brother Aldo, as I said, and I had the opportunity to visit Monza for the Italian Grand Prix in 1954, age 14. My idol, Alberto Ascari, was there driving for Ferrari, of course, and all the other greats, Fangio, Moss, and Leclerc, and all that, and seeing that firsthand, you know, from there on, like I said, impossible dream, but never had a plan B, if you know what I mean. So when we came to America, you know, immediately, you know, we discovered racing, you know, locally, and 2 years after that, we started building a race car and modified to drive in a hometown. It was a track, you know, half-mile dirt track and so forth, and then and it all started there. You know, at age 19, which was illegal at that time, you had to be 21 to race professionally. So we had somebody who was the editor of a local newspaper, the Keys that changed our birth date on the license. Anyway, that's how it all started. For me and Aldo started in 1959, age 19, and my last professional race was the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2000.
That's incredible. 41 years. And I think too, like, what's so incredible about you is the longevity of your career. I don't, there's really no one that's been as competitive for so long. I mean, if you look, especially in that era when my grandpa in the 60s, a lot of them were lucky to, live a few years driving, but you stayed in the sport for 41 years as a driver, professional.
Yeah, I mean, I was driven by pure passion and love for driving. And I was, as you said, very, very fortunate that somehow, I was only missed 2 races because of injury. And some of my closest friends were not so lucky, especially in that era. And even my brother, he paid dearly for that. But nevertheless, I was spared and I was able to continue. And I could never get enough. I just I pushed the envelope as long as I could, and always trying to gauge that I would not overstay too long, because I wanted to have a positive memory of my competitive driving, and I think I accomplished that. But again, I keep saying this, and I mean it. I count my blessings every day for having had that opportunity, because for me, driving a race car was the only thing that could have satisfied my life.
And obviously, one of the highlights of your career, 1969 Indy 500, is there one thing from that win that you remember the most?
Yeah, winning, crossing the finish line, because that was let's see, 65 was my rookie year, and that's when I finished third behind your dad, and 66, 67 I was on pole. Car broke down. 68, the third lap broke down, and I figured, when in the world am I going to finish this race? The second race that I finished after 5 years we won it, and so tremendous satisfaction, of course. In that, I was happy to see your dad, win it finally, and when he did, because he worked so hard. He was another one that, just leading, and then somebody else was picking up the hardware. So anyway, 69, not just Indy. A lot of people overlook it was probably one of the most satisfying seasons of my career, because the championship itself was so diverse, because counting for points was, obviously super speedway, short oval, dirt track, the champ dirt car that had 5 different tracks counting, and road courses. And I won at least one race in every one of those areas, plus even the Pikes Peak Hill Climb, which counted for championship points. So for me, looking back at that particular season, a lot of people just remember Indy, which of course, is the highlight in that sense. But overall, from a driver's standpoint, it was the season that really, really paid off. I'll give you, for instance, in 67, 68, I had the closest finish going into the championship. Actually, I was leading the championship going into Riverside, the last race of the season. It was, and the first, 67, I ran out of fuel the last lap, they miscalculated. 68, blew the engine, and leading. And then in 69, I didn't have to win that, because I had the championship showed up in August. Riverside was in December. I won Riverside that year. So, like I said, along the way, you always had to fight, because it could have been, what if this, what if that would have happened? Could have been, a lot more. But again, that's the way the sport is, and you take what you can get and be happy, and I'm happy.
One story that my grandpa's told me is in '67 when he was driving the turbine car. I think he qualified 6th, and you put it on pole. But there was rumors that he was sandbagging during the month of May and in qualifying. And the first lap, he not confirmed those rumors, but I remember he drove around and got the lead coming out of 2, starting in 6th. And I remember you might have given him a little kind gesture or something.
Yeah, there's even a T-shirt showing that. Yeah, but he was not sandbagging because the advantage that he had in a race with that turbine was that we were carrying 70 gallons of fuel. And he was carrying 35 because the efficiency of the engine. So he was so much lighter, and he went by me on the back straightaway, and I flipped him a birdie. I said, "That's my buddy."
That's funny.
I think he got a kick out of that, but I was like sitting still when he went by me. So yeah, and he should have won that doggone race. I mean, but anyway, that's Parnelli. He was the best.
That's funny. I just had to ask about that story.
No, it's true.
So, obviously you're the only driver to ever win the Indy 500, Daytona 500, F1 World Championship. What are different skills that you think are needed behind the wheel to excel in each of those disciplines?
Well, obviously, each discipline has its own characteristics in the cars. I mean, you know that, and you just have to be prepared to adapt, and you have to be just driven by the desire to do it. I mean, you could easily, you can, a lot of drivers do, just specialize in one area. For me, I just couldn't get enough of, I was always curious, to see what was going on. I see, Parnelli was one, he could be driving anything, and he was able, to extract and be able to win in different categories. So, and all of that, stimulated me, but said, they can do it, maybe I should try it and all that. And I was watching, I learned so much from your dad in stock cars, especially, the USAC stock cars, we ran some races, and I said, man, the guy is flawless. And I remember we were testing in Milwaukee, and I was basically on the same team with him, and I asked him, I said, can I just ride with you a couple of laps? I was sitting on the floor, hanging onto the robot, just to watch him, steer the thing through the corners. And then I go out there and try to be Parnelli, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, but you have no idea how much I respect and admire your dad's ability to drive a race car, besides, being friends on the human side, but as a race driver, I tell you what, one of the best I've ever seen. And quite honestly, I'm glad that he retired in 1965, because I would have never won the championship. So, I'll tell you that one.
Well, that means a lot to hear. That's super cool, and that's a great story. You rode with him, not even in a seat. Yeah. And then you also got to experience the other side of driving for him and Vel's race team. How was he as a team owner? Was it a different person a bit, or was it the same?
No, it was Parnelli. It's Parnelli. He always he understood every aspect, the driving, and we had some issues, with the cars, with the that in '72, with the dihedral and all that, and but luckily we had George Bignati on there with was his type of guy that really understood what was needed, and we transformed it, and won championships, like with Joe Leonard. So, but driving for him, we even talked him into going to Formula One. So. Yeah, and Parnelli and we were on the same page, always, no question. I just, I feel so fortunate that I got to know him, and we were like family together, actually, so in many ways.
That's awesome.
The conversation I've had with Jagger several times is, just the percentage today of like what it is, because obviously I think the car, like if you have a good car now, it's a lot different than back when you drove. And I know the percentage you threw out was today it's 70% car, 30% driver, right? Is what you thought. Like, how do you think that? I mean, back in the 50s and 60s, like, was it more driver or more the car?
Well, I don't know how to assess that one. I mean, it's that depends on the moment. I mean, it's I don't think you can say because a lot of it is even depends on the type of track. I mean, I put more percentage on the driver on the road courses, for instance, than an oval, especially super speedway, because super speedway, unless you have the power, the horsepower, you have a lot of things you cannot overdo it. When you're lacking that speed on straightaway and so on and so forth, you cannot make up. I mean, you can make up, but I mean, on the road courses, you can do a lot, because there's so many corners and that. So, to be honest with you, you can dissect this thing until the cows come home. But but as far as the percentage aspect, it can change every race. A lot of people. So the drivers that time. Now, let me tell you this, and I feel firmly that yesterday's champions would have been champions today and vice versa.
Absolutely.
It's just the driver still the one that actually has to extract everything that's given, to him or her, and they do it better than the rest of them. So today you're going faster because why? Because you have more, the tools you have available to you are more capable. But that's it. But so your job is to extract the maximum out of the equipment, then and now. So there you have it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think this is a very fair question considering where we're sitting, right outside of turn 1 of Indianapolis, my favorite place pretty much in the world. So how did you, back in the day, how hard was Indy to win compared to, your F1 championships, Daytona, everything you've done? How do you rank how difficult the Indy 500 is?
Well, the biggest difficulty here was just to finish, be able to really squeeze, because, like I said, I'll go back to your dad as well. Look how unlucky he was in not being able to finish the race while he was leading. I have more laps led here than all but one of the 4-time winners. And, I dominated this race a couple of times, like in 87 especially, 23 laps from the end, valve spring brakes, and things like that. So, again, this race, there's an element of luck here as well, because of the length of it. But I put stock in how competitive any driver was during the race, and that's what makes me feel that I did my job in that sense, because I had control of this race more than some other winners, So I just didn't have the luck, and but. Am I crying? No. It's just one of those things. It's just, but going back to how difficult it is, I put the difficulty in the cars that when I was active, the reliability factor just wasn't there, because we were squeezing 101% out of the engines. Now today, by rule, which is great, the engines have a lot of fudge factor. The engine's supposed to go 2,400 miles, I think, legally. So today, your chances of finishing today are like 99%, except for maybe mistake. But so it's a different story in that, So, I think I even was discussing with your dad. I said, Parnelli, you and I were born way too early, because our style of driving would have worked really peachy today, because we were on it. I mean, right from the get-go. I didn't have patience, like some, all due respect, the answers, wait here, and then they pick up the pieces where we leave off. You know, I was flat out. You know, right from the word going. That was my style, and I didn't want to change it. You know, that was the way to go. Today, that would have paid off big time. So there you go. You know, it just we did. You know, but you have to deploy whatever you feel, you know, satisfies you, and that was it.
One of my favorite racing movies of all time is Super Speedway. I remember actually going to IMAX to see it. It was like 97, I think, when it came out. Just talk a little bit about making that movie, and it's so funny to watch today because if you look at the photos, you know, you had that big camera on top of the car, and and now, you know, I mean, the footage is just as good, and you can't even see the camera. So just talk a little bit about just that process of making that movie.
Well, it was actually fun in so many ways because it was a big commitment from the production company, and yeah, you say talking about the camera, yeah, it was. The camera was over 90 pounds, you know, way up in the air, and I had to drive competitively to make it, you know, look like, because all the filming was just strictly, I guess 24 feet per second or something, which is normal. Nothing was, no speeding up of the speed. So, and I know in Michigan, I was running 207, 210 miles an hour. Laps with that camera was challenging, and we had some B-roll that was really interesting. But yeah, it was fun doing it. Again, there was a lot of good, you know, action shots there, you know, with Michael and I and stuff for it. So anyway. Yeah, it was. We enjoyed doing that.
That intro, I love that intro of that movie with you, and I forget the name. It's a paraglider. What's that? The plane thing?
Ultralight.
Ultralight. I think that's one of the coolest things ever. The intro of that with you on the ultralight.
I'll take it for a ride. I still fly it.
All right, let's go.
It's a different one.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's a two-seater now.
So we have some rapid fire questions, and you can start with these, Jagger.
Oh, no.
You don't have to be too rapid if you don't want it to be. What's one piece of advice you would tell your younger self?
Sometimes maybe be a little more patient in some ways, and that's something that I had. You know, yeah, be a little more patient.
If you could race any car from history, which one would it be and why?
Any car I could win a race with.
What was your favorite car that you drove? I know there's so many to choose. It's a hard question.
For me, actually, my rodeo was open wheel single seaters. That's my ultimate satisfaction because that's the ultimate purpose race car. It's like a fighter aircraft, so winning any race in Indy cars, you know, having had the opportunity to winning. Super speed on the ovals, short ovals, you know, and all that on dirt. That was give me the ultimate satisfaction. So that's it. That's my rapid fire answer.
Yeah. What was your, as from a driver's perspective, maybe not the winning, but what track did you enjoy driving the most?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean,
I know
there's some tracks like Trenton, New Jersey. I won there 6 times. I have no idea why, because it's not that I liked it better than anywhere else, you know. So I don't know how to really put that one together.
Wherever you were winning, you liked.
Winning is winning. Yeah.
Who's the toughest competitor you ever faced on the track?
Parnelli Jones.
What's like something that maybe some people don't know as much about you or your life?
Well, maybe they don't know that I enjoy life outside of the sport, and that's what gave me longevity, I think, because I was really, really focused in my work, but also was able to release, and I had, you know, my wife was a perfect partner in my life in every way. And because she taught me to just live a life. In other words, there's some guy like my son Michael. He wanted to keep some concentration. He would dine in his hotel room before the race. I didn't know. I went to the best restaurants and everything else, and I think I lived my life. I raced in 6 continents, all 6 continents in my days, and I enjoyed all of that aspect, what it had to offer, and I think that in itself gave me longevity.
Dirt, paved oval, or road course?
All of it. All of it.
Who was the toughest team owner you ever drove for?
Parnelli Jones.
And last, what's your favorite Indy 500 tradition? Like pre-race festivity or something like that?
No, my tradition is whenever you lower yourself into the race car to do your job, everything else is actually obviously a distraction. And I never actually hear, I love all the pageantry, which is what makes it the event that it is. But as a driver, I used to just, the moment I was lowering myself in the cockpit to do my job, that was my favorite moment.
I did not expect that. That's a good answer. So when we talk about racing today, obviously technology has changed the sport a lot. Do you think that technology has changed the sport in a good way or a bad way, or kind of what is your thought kind of on racing today and how technology has impacted it?
Well, technology has to enter, to maintain the interest, and then also keep the auto manufacturers really curious and being part of it, because it's a great test bed for a lot of new technologies, and so that has to be. And quite honestly, even myself as a driver, always look for something different, something better, something new. I think it's all important, except that we know so much today that you could almost make the car automatically drivable, and but by rule, and it should be, we don't have all of the conveniences of traction control and except all of the benefits that you have on a road car, because you want to keep that into the driver's hands. Let the driver determine all of that, and our cars don't have power steering. Well, Formula One they do, but we don't. The drivers in Formula One are much weaker than we are. No.
Exactly.
So you're right.
That's what I think. One of the things I appreciate about you is how you've made, especially in a day of today where everyone my generation thinks of racing, they think now of Formula One with the Netflix show and how popular it's been. But I think someone like you shows and gives the most amount of respect to American racing and IndyCar, and being able to go from dominating here to going over there and win. I think that's really cool to, I don't know necessarily how to put it in words, but kind of show America that, put America on the map and keep it that way.
Well, America actually is the only country on the planet actually that can offer brilliant careers to drivers they don't even need a passport per se. We have the major series here. We got IndyCar, we have NASCAR, we have IMSA, and on and at the top highest level. So don't discount that, please. From any standpoint, and I think it was interesting actually. Even the time when Fernando Alonso was here, driving for son Michael, and we had a lot of discussion, and here is this race is the only race that gives you the opportunity to really hone yourself in and almost be like a veteran by the time it starts, because of all except for rain, all the time that you have to spend on the track. But this is a guy that actually is very experienced, and they've done a little bit of everything. He didn't take this for granted by any means, believe me. He says he gained respect because he tried it, and we had several of in the past drivers like Jackie Stewart and whatever, and some of the races that were won like by Jimmy Clark and whatever, they had a big advantage, technically in the car. So not to take anything away from the drivers, but you know what I mean. But don't tell me that there isn't talent, American talent that can get the job done anywhere. So that's the way it is.
Yep, 100%. And what would it? Speaking of that, what would it mean to get the Andretti name back into Formula One? I know it's a bit of a touchy subject now, but
yeah, well, Jagger, we're doing everything possible, to earn it. I think the technical side is purely accepted, and we even more than what was required. You have to remember, like when they officially opened the application situation by the FIA. There were 4 teams that applied for it, and only us made it. And the others were, they had all their stuff together too. But so it was very rigorous process, and then it came down to the commercial side, and that's where sort of we got blocked. Now that we're totally open, we know what we have to come up with, but it doesn't seem to be enough. So we're a little bit of a standstill there, but I'm confident that reason will prevail ultimately.
One of the big storylines this year for the 500 obviously is Kyle Larson, and people compare Kyle Larson to a lot of people, but the comparison I hear the most is to yourself. Just because of his versatility, how many different cars he gets in and wins. When you look at someone like Kyle Larson, what characteristics do you see in him that you think makes him so good?
Well, pure love of driving a race car. He doesn't have to do all the things that he does, like drive a sprint car the night before, a NASCAR race, or even come in here. He just purely loves driving a race car. That's what I love about Kyle Larson, myself, because again, even when he drove for Chip Ganassi, Chip was telling me, "Oh man, how can I just, I got to get him to stop doing that." I said, "Don't you dare, don't you dare do that." So he's doing what he loves to do, and I love and respect that.
I mean, I think a lot of people make the argument that it makes him sharper as a driver, right? That he's racing that many times a week.
Loves to drive. That's the main thing. I mean, I know that every contract I had, we had a clause there. You cannot drive anything else without written permission. And you know what? I did it. And I said, as long as I'm there, I don't have any conflict of interest with sponsors or whatever. As long as I respect that, nobody would tell me what to do and what not to do as far as in the race car. So I can show you examples of that, that I defy that, because I never even argue when we were, putting a contract together, and that clause went in. I said, okay, put it in. I said, I'm not gonna buy it anyway. So.
So we're going to talk about cars today. Obviously, the safety is a big aspect. What are some areas that you think, and it's funny because we always ask people about the safety, and they say if they raced in the 90s, they said, well, in the 90s, that was the safest car we knew. Yeah, and I'm sure 20 years from now, people will look back and say, how did you drive those cars? Right. But what are some aspects or areas you think that could be improved as far as safety goes?
Well, let's put it this way. Safety is a work in progress.
Yeah.
I mean, that you gain data, from every incident, because every incident is different. And, there's a crash testing and all sort of things. I know that to give you, for instance, the IndyCar of 91 to 92, with adding a bulkhead and all that, I know that my son Jeff, when they sheared the left rear during the race, he almost head on into turn 2 wall. It was
Yeah.
like a 70-degree angle, 84.4 Gs. I mean, the whole front of the car, I mean, it was destroyed up to the windshield, and his legs were sticking out. But he was driving a car that was a year older, a 91 model instead of 92. Later that season, Paul Tracy had almost similar accident in Elkhart Lake, concrete barrier. He only had barely, an ankle injury where Jeff almost lost both his legs. You see what I mean? There was progress, and progress continues. And that's a beautiful thing, because today's race drivers have the best chance ever to retire on their own terms. The sport, I don't think, would have survived as it became more commercial if safety would not have vigorously been dealt with by the sanctioning body. So we're at a good place. There's a strong future for our sport, and like I said, the safety aspect is paramount.
Yeah, absolutely.
The sport will never be 100% safe,
Right.
because, I mean, the challenge will always be there, no question. But we'll do everything humanly possible to just make it as safe as it can be, so the drivers can race another day.
Yeah, I totally agree. As we start to wrap it up, this is a question I really wanted to ask, but what would you say to an upcoming driver trying to make it into IndyCar or whatever it is, like myself? What piece of advice would you say to someone like me?
Well, there are good systems in place. They got a ladder system coming up and everything, and that's something that exists today. It's like going to school, and try not to repeat the grade. Just keep going forward. Experience is experience. There's no shortcut anywhere. It's all about what's inside of you. I mean, how much passion, how much desire do you have? And you know what? You're going to have bumps on the road, but just keep driving, keep thinking positive, and that's it. I mean, we all have different opportunities, different abilities, even to do this. But believe it or not, if I found a way, with the way I came through, there is a way.
That's very inspiring.
Absolutely. I think we have one last question. So Marco now, obviously, he's getting into NASCAR. He won the SRX championship. So he's trying, he's doing have more versatility in his career. Kind of what has your advice been to Marco as he's getting into different forms of racing?
Well, the advice is just do what you think you should be doing.
Yeah.
Please yourself. Nobody should tell you what to do. And that's it. I mean, and he's his own man. Satisfy yourself and be happy. Enjoy what you're doing. That's the only advice that I could provide.
Absolutely. Well, Mario, thank you so much for meeting with us. And it's really a dream come true to actually do this in person, so it really means a lot.
Yeah, this has been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, guys.
I really appreciate a lot of the advice and things. I think there's a lot of really good stuff in there. And you can tell after the career you've had.
Anytime. Well, my line is open anytime.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mario.
Thank you.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you.